Hello, everybody, and welcome to another live. It is May the 14th already, which is quite mind-boggling how fast the year's going. Lots of people here, so we'll get going. Kind of housekeeping as usual. Just a reminder, if you are asking a question, write the word question, because then that makes sure that I can pick it up very easily and don't get lost within all the general chatter and bits and bobs. If you're watching this afterwards, of which so many people do, and I appreciate that, remember it is a live stream, it's not a video. So everything that I talk about is driven by the people who are here live. Will there be a live stream next week? I hope so, but can't guarantee it because I will be on MSC Virtuosa, saying out Southampton. So I'm not sure once I'm there and suss out the Wi-Fi. My general experience in Norway's Wi-Fi, because of the mountains and the fjords, is a little bit unpredictable. So keep an eye out for that, whether there is a live stream or not. By the way, it is Mother's Day in quite a few countries around the world, not in the UK. So if it is Mother's Day where you are, happy Mother's Day. I've seen lots of people leaving comments on that. So I'm just checking everything's going fine. It appears to be going fine. Lots of people are here. So let's get going. I'll sort of whack through the questions as they come in, and then I'll talk a little bit later about MSc and all that sort of stuff coming up. Fred started off by asking the question. Hi there, Fred. We've sailed Holland America twice. Available excursions are normally sailed far in advance. You're right, they normally come out about 100 days before is the norm on Holland America. Other lines may be much further out. Holland America normally 100 days out. I wouldn't get too panicked yet. I haven't seen a lot of noise about Holland America changing routings or rescheduling ships or anything. So it could just be a timing thing, but certainly keep an eye on that. But I haven't heard any rumors of changes happening. Peter, hi there, Peter. Peter making the point he's never used room service because they don't know the protocol regarding tipping when you've already paid it before boarding. I'm not a big user of room service, and I'm a little bit like you. I'm never really sure around the tipping thing. I'm probably one of those terrible people that tend to maybe under tip, and lots of people do tip. If it's included theoretically, Peter, you don't have to. I know a lot of people like to give the odd tip here and there. Of course, many cruise lines have started to introduce fees for room service now, so there's already kind of a fee in there. Warren asking the question, which I assume is linked to my recent Nile cruise. How does the on-site antiquity compare to the British museums at home? So we went on the Nile cruise, Warren, as you may have followed, depending if you're following my posts, to the old Egyptian museum, the Museum of Egyptian Antiquities, which is the older museum. Sort of, what color would you call that? Anyway, it's the older museum. It's not the new museum, which is opening. Who ever knows when? Even our guides have no idea when it's due to open. And we actually went past it, and it looks still relatively like a building site, so it looks some way off. So actually, but they've started to move some of the stuff. Certainly, the British Museum is very impressive. I would say in some ways the British Museum is almost more impressive because just the way it's laid out and the style and the structure around it. And there's some very impressive stuff. So actually, it was a bit ramshackle, the Egyptian Museum, and you almost felt like some of the best things have gone. Of course, one of the best things, they do have a Tutankhamun section still there, so you get to see the actual gold, mask and stuff, which is just amazing. You can't take any photos or videos in there, so that is the plus, obviously. But certainly, I think the British Museum is a little bit more ordered and structured, and I guess the new museum, when it opens, the Great Egyptian Museum, will be. The idea, basically, what the guide explains is they're going to have 3 museums. So basically, tourists will have to pay to go to 3 different museums. And the old Egyptian museum that I went to is going to focus on the really big, massive, big structures, big statues, because of course they're also quite difficult to move as well. So, and the other one's going to be more mummies and stuff. So hypnotherapy for you. Can I purchase premium Wi-Fi on Celebrity Silhouette for just one day? And is it able to run a Teams video call? Certainly my experience was I wouldn't be too sure that it's going to work as a Teams call. I did try when I was on Celebrity and also in Holland America up in the Baltic area to do live streams. It was pretty shoddy. Now, saying that, of course, they're all moving to Starlink, which should dramatically improve that. So you want to check whether Starlink will be installed on Celebrity Silhouette by that time, because that will make a big difference. Certainly, they were selling packages, not individual days. when I was last on. But I'm sure if you went to talk to the what they call the internet people, I'm sure they probably do deal. But certainly this may have changed. But certainly when I was on, it was kind of you bought everything or nothing. They were doing a few little individual packages, but the internet guy, I'm sure, will be able to help with that. So I've linked to Celebrity Rapista. What's the best dining strategy for Celebrity? There are so many dining rooms, especially dining. So it also varies a little bit based on which celebrity ship you're going to be on, because obviously if you're on, the Silhouette or the old Millennium and Solstice class ships, it's a slightly different strategy to you would have on the new Edge class ships. So Edge and Apex and Beyond and am I going to look on the new one coming out now? Well, I've got the name of it. I was looking the other day. Anyway, so if you're on the older Celebrity ones, you obviously have the main dining room, or you have Blue, or you have Lumini, based on what cabin grade you're in. I generally am not a massive big fan of specialty dining on Celebrity, so I tend to focus a lot on the main dining room. And particularly if you're going on the Edge or Apex class, you have the 4 restaurants you can move between. So I would kind of plan to move, from a 7-night cruise to go to each one of those 4 and maybe try one of specialty. So if you are on Edge class, you might want to try Eden, which I think is a little bit overpriced, overrated, but it's kind of that whole experience side. But certainly, if you're on those Edge class, I would focus on those 4. So lots of people saying hello, which is great. Linnea, Janet, I hope that pronounced great. Claudia, having been treated after 3, heading off to Africa. Return Life, any tips for Virgin lovers? I guess you're talking about Virgin cruises rather than anything else. And I did see you ask another question around whether they did serve bangers a match. I cannot remember if they served bangers a match at all. I mean, their menus are pretty, international, US focused in reality rather than kind of British focused. But I cannot remember if they had bangers and mash anywhere. So if anyone can remember that, let me know. So in terms of Virgin, I mean, I think the biggest tips I've got with Virgin would be to get your dining sorted as soon as you can, online through the app, etc. Because many of the nicest venues get sold out or booked out really quickly. So, if you want to go to the Wake or stuff like that, I would try and lock those down. That's still the biggest complaint I hear about people not being able to get the dining that they want, because obviously all the venues are included. There's no main dining room. So I would try and get that locked down as much as you possibly can. And of course, they have the parties. If we have Scarlet Night and they've got pajama parties, so you want to get into those, I would kind of make sure you put your Scarlets and all that bits and pieces around that. That would be my key thing. The other thing with Virgin is they don't print out the daily program, so you've got to kind of have the app or on the be ready for that, or on they do put it up on the screens. Those are probably my main ones. If anyone's got other ones, that would be great. Mooman 547 being able to join the September group cruise, which is great news. Just remind everybody there are 2 at the moment group cruises. I've got one in April, which is for channel members and patrons. It's my first group cruise. A slightly smaller group. I think at the moment there's probably going to be about 40 people on that cruise. It's a relatively small group, and that's in April next year. It's on Holland America, Rotterdam, out of Fort Lauderdale, and it's a Caribbean trip. Then in September, which is the one that Mooman 547 is talking about, which is a Celebrity Eclipse group cruise, which sails out of Boston. It's 11 nights or 10, I can't remember now, but it's 11 or 10 nights. So excuse me. And that's an open cruise, anyone can come, and that's selling pretty well. It's going to be a bigger group than that. I'm going to take a slurp. And all grades of cabins and stuff like that are available. If you want to find out more about the group cruises, sorry, I've got a tickle in my throat now. If you go to my website, tipsfortravelers.com, travelers with 2 L's, you'll find a little tab there with group cruises, and I'll try and put a little link in there. I'm actually going to do another push on the group cruises in about June time, just reminding everybody that they're around. So great news that you are able to join. So Steve, any word on the Queen Mary to cancel? Not a word from them since emailing them. Insurance won't cover since they refunded the flights on Cosmo Cruise 20%. Future cruise credit hurts. Steve, I haven't really heard other than exactly what you said is But then it's a done deal. They've gone and moved on. And in fact, as you probably know, they put on an extra cruise over the coronation weekend, which was dirt cheap because they must have fixed the problem with the ship. So lots of people tried Cunard for the first time. So pretty much everybody I know, they, as far as they're concerned, they've done what they're going to do. It seems to align, and it's your problem. And so lots of people, of course, are very upset about that. Because as you said, insurance won't ever cost flights home and that sort of stuff. But they certainly seem to not be bothered. So I don't have any other great insight. I'm sorry about that, and it's really, really frustrating. I can imagine, and obviously very expensive for many people. Laura, has anyone experienced with the tours in Belfast in relation to the troubles? There are many different companies. I prefer one with a bit of depth. I read about a lot. So Laura B, I have been on a sort of a tour when we were in Belfast around the troubles, which is fascinating. But in reality, we actually got a taxi driver, so a group of us, and one of the taxi drivers offered to take us around and did that sort of tour, and it was really fascinating. Of course, the risk of that is it's very hit and miss, and you don't know the taxi driver. And of course, you might get a taxi driver that has one political view versus another political view, so you're going to get more reviews. So I don't have any specific experiences other than I would highly recommend, if you're doing that, is to do one. Because it is really, really fascinating. Even having grown up through, through that troubles of being in London when the IRA bombs and things were going off, I really hadn't appreciated a lot of what went on, and seeing the dividing wars and what got locked up at night, and the story behind the different murals and stuff. It's really, 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 really fascinating. Ken asking the question, what's the best month to visit Alaska? And this is a great segue, Ken. Thank you very much. Probably sparked because I think you might have left a comment on my Alaska video. So in my view, now it's going to differ a lot. And I do, one of my Alaska videos talks about this. I love going to Alaska in May, which is the month where you have the least amount of rain, generally speaking, because it rains a lot in Alaska. It's at the beginning of the season, or the season is creeping earlier and earlier into April and stuff. But May is a great month to go. But it's not the best month in terms of wildlife as such, but it's still, it's a little bit quiet. It's not as expensive. I always like going in June. So for example, I've been in June last year, and I actually just booked this past week to go to Alaska again in June. So I also like it because it's again a quieter time. Now, if you're really into wanting to see more of bears, for example, or want to see more whales, that tends to be a little bit later. So the salmon run, I need to go and check my video because I'm going to do a plug for my video in a second. The salmon run starts around about July, August time, if I remember correctly. So the bears are, come out because that's when they're feeding on the salmon. So it's a much better time. So there's more bear watching. So even in places like Skagway, and you can actually find not far out of town places you can go and see bears and stuff doing that. And the whales. The orca whales are much earlier in the season, much harder to see, but the humpback whales, of which nearly 500 head into the Inside Passage apparently in the summer season, those you will see during the more in the midsummer months particularly. So the big whale watching time seems to sort of be July into August as well. That, of course, is also the busiest time. Now, I'm going to do a little punt here because I actually, I will do the video that came out yesterday evening, was my first of a series of 3 videos around Alaska. So the first one is around little tricks and tips, and it actually was inspired because friends of mine were planning a trip and they booked an itinerary which looked great because they'd watched my previous videos. And I looked at the itinerary and there was like, you do realize you're basically going to have like 3 hours max in some of these critical ports, and you're actually not going into Glacier Bay and stuff like that. So I did that video. I was working on that video, and then Heather, I don't know if Heather's here today, maybe not because she might be off on a cruise actually. She had said at the same time, sent me a request saying they were going to Alaska, but they had forked out. Flights were way more expensive. They had no money. So what to do in Alaska ports with no money? And I got a video which actually is coming out next week, which is around how to do Alaska without breaking the bank. And I have another video which will come out a little bit later, which is around must-do things if you do have budget. Anyway. Ken, I do talk a little bit in one of those videos about the best month to go, but May, June is the time I go, and that's when I go, and that's when I book. And as I've mentioned again, I've booked that. I booked it for June again next time. Now, Claudia, it's a very long time since I've been to Cape Town, so I don't have any recommendations. But if people do please leave those. So great to go to Claudia. I'm going to Cape Town. For years and years and years. In end of sort of February next year, I'm doing a Silver Sea, like that thing around there. Of course, one of the challenges in South Africa now is they have the load shedding, where the electric grid goes off for long periods of time, and so I guess lots of restaurants and things now have generators and things. So if you find any great restaurants in Cape Town, then please let me know, because that would be good. That would be good for me. Richard is in Las Vegas. So very lucky. It's really interesting because, as you probably know, I'm a massive big fan of Las Vegas. I haven't actually stayed at the Tropicana. Tropicana's it's been revamped recently, I guess. So when we were there last time, it was very quiet when we were there last time, because it's just across the road there from Mandalay Bay and stuff. Anyway, last weekend we went away because it was a long weekend, and we planned to go away, and then it became even longer, and we were so tempted to go to Vegas. We went to Sophia, as I think we spoke about you there last time. And we were just talking today about how we just love to go to Vegas. Mark's actually going again in October, and I don't have any plans currently this year to go to Vegas. Thanks very much to Jane, who's just left a super chat there. Very kind of you, Jane. When it comes up in the feed, I will also do that. And there's also Fred has also left one as well. So thank you very much for that too. So they've come up, and I'll make sure. One of the things I'm trying to do is shout them out when I see them appearing, because I realized last week, and I have to give an apology, is if I wait for them to come up in the actual stream, I sometimes miss them, and then it's the end of the live stream and I've missed them. So if you've got questions linked to those, as soon as I see those, in fact, I will see if I can find any questions. I will try and answer those questions linked to those as well. Jane doesn't have a question, and Fred doesn't. So it's a super chat. So thank you very, very much for that. That's greatly appreciated. So have a great time, Richard, in Las Vegas. Very envious of you being in Vegas. Fraser's here as well. So great to see you, Fraser. So Fraser, as you may know or may not know, is basically spending most of this year living on cruise ships. So he stopped working his full-time job, and he's basically jumping ship to ship. And I've set him a kind of a task, because he's doing quite a lot of Costas, and sort of a collaboration, I guess, where the only cruise of the 102 now I've done that I didn't enjoy was on Costa, and it's a very long time ago, and I've never been back to Costa. So I've set Fraser a chance, because he's trying a challenge, because he's been trying different Costa cruises, to say which one is the one I should go back on that's most likely going to be the one that would convince me that Costa's not the hell on earth. So he is on he was on Symphony of the Seas, which I was very interested in, because I'm going on Symphony later this year. So that's the challenge. So hopefully Fraser will find a great Costa. And what he's done is, because internet's so expensive, is a lot of them he's using is 4G and stuff, which is why I guess he's talking about signal dying. So good to see you here, Fraser. So follow me. He's very, very active at the moment on Instagram stories. So it's been really great. So he's been very active on Instagram stories. So if you're a big Instagram stories fan, watch that as well. Chris, hope you're Marco well. Yes, thank you very much. My next cruise is on Ammer on the Rhone. Anything I should not miss on that cruise? Good challenge. I really like Ammer Waterways, as you know. I talk a lot about Ammer Waterways in relation when you watch my Nile videos around the big learning I had about how it isn't really Ammer when you go places like that. But anyway, so on the Rhone, anything that you should really miss? I don't have any big things, Chris, off the top of my head that I can think of. But if I come up with any, I will think of it. One of the things I would say, which is not linked to the destinations, is what I really like about Ammer is they have moved on their ships into having, they have the kind of, they call them like a wellness person, but they do some great little classes. They have some more wellness menus. They have, I guess it's called Chef's Table. So make sure you've got that booked if that's on your ship. I think they have that on the Rhone. They're sitting on the Danube and the Rhine. I think they have it on the Rhone as well. That's a really nice dining experience. But that whole wellness thing is fun. And they've got some really good, in most places now, cycling tours. And I've normally found the cycling tours are great. They're not as popular as some of the other included tours, but they are really, really, really great. Hi there, Bill. Good to see you there. Sailing on Saturday on Rotterdam for Norwegian fjords. So if you're sailing on, I must actually check the itinerary, actually, Bill, because I'm heading off on Friday for the fjords. So I'm going to look at on cruise timetables and see if there's any ports where MSc Virtuoso is the same. It'd be good to say hello to you if you are. So anyway, excursions booked, dining booked. Any other onboard tips for the Rotterdam? Well, I think the one place that I really like on their pinnacle class ships is the Grand Dutch Cafe. So, Bill, I can't remember if you've been on any of those ships, but the Grand Dutch Cafe, it's a fun place to sit. It's good people watching spot. Those would be my main things. Excursions you booked. The only other watch out is obviously Music Walk is really good. I still think that where they fall down, and be interested to get your perspective, Bill, is I think they fall down in the main theatre. They have the One Step Dance Company, which is great, but it is a little bit samey. They have the BBC Planet Earth, which I know like Bob and Holly love, and other people love. I don't find it a big fan. I would really be interested to like almost not rely on those evening shows unless you really do like them. But I'll also try and see if we match up in some places. Mark asking the question, got 2 cruises booked within 6 months of each other. When does it become cost effective to take out annual travel insurance? So I actually take it out anyway. And Mark, he travels less. He travels maybe 3 times a year. We'll take out an annual policy because actually it works out cheaper. So I guess one of the simple answers is cost. At what point does that break even? And I don't know what country you're in, Mark. I guess you might be UK because annual travel insurance is harder to get in some places. I just like having the reassurance of it. The other thing that I found is, particularly for me, like if you have pre-existing conditions, like with my cancer diagnosis and stuff, so I found it's much more cost effective to take it out as an annual. It's very interesting. We were doing a quote in December, we're taking Mark's mum to Australia via Singapore and stuff. And she is 79, I guess, 78 at the moment, turning 79. She will be 79, I think, when we go. So I was doing some quotes, and it was interesting. A lot of them were once they got to that age perspective, actually the annual was almost the same as booking just for the trip. So I think it's a cost perspective changeover. Key thing, of course, with travel insurance, I'm not a big expert on travel insurance, in my perspective. Key thing, though, I would say is make sure whatever you do take out has cruise-specific cover, because that is very important, because it does cover things like medevacs off ships and all that sort of stuff. Heather is here. So I mentioned Heather a little bit earlier. And he talks about my 81-year-old dad enjoy our cruise. He's only cruised once before, almost 20 years ago, and he got seasick. He just wondered that we can't do the train. So Heather, of course, hopefully, in fact, I should probably send you a link, because you can actually watch that video I've done that I sent you the script around, which I think I mentioned earlier. Heather inspired that whole video. And the little booklet that goes with that will be ready by tomorrow. So maybe I'll try and send that little booklet to you, because that includes lots of things. A lot of it will hinge around just how active your dad is. I mean, the thing I would say is there are in a couple of places, both in Skagway and in Ketchikan, Heather, there is a little shuttle bus. So there's a little, and it costs like $5 or so. So in Skagway, take people from the ship into town. It'll actually drive right through the town. There's one in Ketchikan as well that sort of weaves its way around. Those are the things that I would do, because if he's not really into those kind of walking tours. But you're right, the challenge is if he's not very active, that is a challenge, because most of these things, as you have seen from that thing I sent you, is a lot of it's around walking and strolling around and so on. Okay, Midwest Kate. I'm seeing some good deals on Holland America. My husband can't get past the idea that it's for seniors. I'm trying to convince him that Holland America's change. Who's right? Well, actually, you're both right in a way, Katie, because if you go on Holland America at school holiday time, particularly if you're going to the Mediterranean, the Caribbean, you will find it has got a lot of kids and lots of families on. I mean, the most extreme example was when I was on Christmas, 400 kids. Thanksgiving, there was even more kids. And someone posted, was it last week, on their they had come back recently from a cruise, and there was several hundred kids. So if you're going at those kind of peak times, it is becoming almost a bit more family-like and a lot of multi-generational. If you go on a longer trip, like when I was on my South America trip, 2 weeks, more unusual itinerary, it definitely is an older profile. So I would say, it really varies around the itinerary and timing that you go. So that's going to be a function. So it depends when you're going, would be the thing. I mean, it definitely is a sort of more sedate, older vibe in a way. The music walk is not. It's very buzzy and very active because people go there into music and stuff. So that area has always got a lot of energy at night. But it's not, if your husband wants to be up at 1 o'clock in the morning boogieing away in a packed disco, it is not going to be the case. The music walk kind of winds down sort of midnight-ish. There is a dance option, but it's not packed. So as I said, it does differ a little bit. And I'm a big fan of Holland America, as you know. Okay, interesting. Li King Vang, hope I pronounced it correctly. Just watched a video about your Norwegian Fjord Garanga video uploaded 10 years ago. That was 2012, I think, because that's probably when it was. Was it 2012? I think it was, because I'm thinking it was my first trip after I'd finished all my chemo and got the all clear and stuff. And that was that time. I didn't want to go too far afield. The RB boat tour, absolutely, I would recommend. In fact, for this, I made a mistake when I went last year to the fjords. I didn't get myself organized with excursions, and all the RV tours were sold out. They sell out really, really quickly because limited numbers. So this time, for my trip that I'm doing, that starts on Friday, I made sure I went in and booked the RV tours. The great thing about with the fjords is getting out on the water is really, really important. It's a big part of the experience. And obviously you can go out on the boat tour stuff, but the RV is fantastic because it weaves right in, scoots around. Something that's got the island stuff. So I really, really love the RV tour. So I do think the RV tour is great. And they're not crazy expensive, compared to like helicopters and things. Of course, you're paying a lot, the money, and you're getting an hour or so. But yes, I do rate them. And definitely, I mean, if it helps, then I will, I've booked it. So, sorry, I was weaving around here. Steve's in Palm Springs, perfect time to come visit. Yes, Mark tells me the temperature in Palm Springs every day. He loves Palm Springs. He's there again for 2 weeks in October, and he still keeps saying it wouldn't be nice to have a house in Palm Springs. So I still think that's on his list. Jerry, hi there, Jerry. Just back from Norway on Saga Spirit Adventure. Hope you had a great time. It's a very beautiful ship. Hope you had a great time. And Saga normally does a really good fjords because it's one of their popular itineraries. Why don't you ever cruise Carnival? I get asked this question a lot. I have never got around to cruise. I mean, Carnival, of course, is the biggest cruise line in terms of number of passengers. It tends to focus mostly out of the US. It doesn't have a lot of itineraries in Europe that don't sail out there, the ship based in the UK. So I never really got around to Carnival. And every time I head to the Caribbean, it's normally for another reason. So, and I'm nervous about going on Carnival because I'm not a big party person, and I always have this image of Carnival being very party. Now, I've seen lots of other YouTubers have gone on Carnival and spoken about how it's not a big party, but they've done things like they've done the Canadian leg, or they've done the transatlantic or something, which I don't think is true. True representation of Carnival and the fun experience. So I will get around to going on Carnival. I was looking actually for some next year to tie, and I had another trip booked on Vista, maybe one before or after that. So I just haven't got around to it, and I should get around to it. I'm trying to make sure I've covered every line. Jonathan asking a question. So I'll ask his point coming in from LinkedIn. There's quite a few, Jonathan. So if you go to, for example, Iceland, I think it's a good one to go by ship because most of the places are around the outskirts of the island in Iceland. So actually, and some of them are quite remote. So actually going on a circumnavigation gets you around very easily. Plus also staying and traveling and the cost of food and stuff in Iceland is very expensive. So actually, it's a great way of getting to all those places. And all the places you want to see are out of the port. So if you go on Reykjavik, you go on the Golden Circle. And I've got the name of the port you go, where you go and do all the ones in the north. And, you go to Jaime or whatever. It's all the way around. So that's a really good one. Panama Canal, I know it's not strictly a destination, but Panama Canal, you can really only best see it by actually being in a ship going through the canal, the same with Suez Canal. Antarctica, obviously, because in fact the only way you can really go and visit it is on a ship. The fjords, the Norwegian fjords, are also a great way of seeing those, because actually traveling by land around Norway and seeing many of the fjords is quite complicated. It's quite a circuitous way. So actually going on the ship and getting down there is actually a lot easier. Then, of course, if you want to go and get a flavor or a taste of a place, so you want to go to the Caribbean, not sure which island you want to go to, going on a cruise is going to give you a taster of 4 or 5 or 6 islands in 1 week to help you choose which one to go back to. The Arctic, is another one, which I think is a really good one. Mark saying that the Virtuoso stream package is pretty good. So hopefully I will be able to do that. I will just do some trials once I'm on the ship. And it's just, my experience in the fjords is where it's been more mixed. So it's good to know. I mean, one of the things I was looking at was, of course, on the Saturday's a sea day. Saturday's a sea day. So that might be a thing. Thank you. Lose reminded me it's called Ascent. Eric, do you foresee another bucket list river cruise in your future? Eric, yes. I mean, I've done the Mekong, which is sort of on my list, and I would like to do the Mekong again. I would also really like to do, there's a couple of very interesting river cruises in Asia, which I would like to do, one of which is done the Ganges, and the other one for me is the Mississippi. I really, really, really want to do the Mississippi, and I haven't done that yet. So they are the two. Mississippi, probably the one I'm going to do soonest, although a lot of people tell me that Mississippi's awful, but I really want to do it. Michelle, have you tried to visit the gym on board on Porto Cedars and how often and many hours per day? I try to go to the gym when I'm on a cruise always, partly because that's how I balance going on cruises lots and balanced diet and food and stuff. I would, and but when I go to the gym, I mostly do Peloton. I'm a Peloton obsessive. So I would normally aim when I'm at home to do 2 days Peloton, 1 day off, 2 days Peloton, 1 day off. So I would generally try and do that when I'm on a cruise. And it varies. Sea days make it, of course, much easier, but the gym is busy. But on a port day, I might go, say, when I'm back from an excursion, or when I'm at home, I tend to do in the morning, but on the ship, I tend to do either just before lunch or late in the afternoon back from an excursion. Those also tend to be the quieter times in the gym, particularly because I want a bike and if all the bikes are busy. So I don't spend that long. I probably only spend 45 minutes. I'd do like 20 minutes Peloton class, 5 minutes stretch class, which are both Peloton classes. Then I'll do a little bit, some weights and toning and stuff. But yes, I do. I make it a thing. I didn't on my Nile River cruising. They had a workout room just because it was so manically busy. Time-wise, it was almost impossible. So I'm going to have a little slurp here. Janet. Hi there, Janet. Good to see you. Have you ever had to use medical while cruising? I fell on my cruise on Princess and I missed my fracture. That's terrible. And I guess the downside with those on cruises, many of them don't necessarily have all the things like scanning equipment. I think some of them, they can take x-rays and scans and they send it on land, don't they? I have only ever used medical for relatively minor things where it's kind of a really bad sore throat or something, and it's more of like an antibiotic situation. So I haven't really used medical very much, and so hopefully that says okay. It says okay. So I haven't, and hopefully I'll keep answering no. That's what I'm really hoping. Color Radio is saying, hope you're safe and healthy. Thank you very much. Yes, I am. Michael, my husband and I are about to leave Baden, Norway to continue on cruise on Queen Mary 2. It's been fabulous. There are a few people here who would like to give an extra tip to any suggestions. So obviously, Michael, I guess you're presumably paying the included gratuities, which they auto-added gratuities. I'm not sure if you're asking, should you do it? Yes, absolutely. If you want to, US dollars is always the preferred thing I found, although of course you're in that area, euros and stuff is fine. You'll find I find on Cunard, the cabin stewards, or if you're in Queen's Call, the butlers, and your waiters sort of expect tips on top of the tips. And it's taken a while for Mark and I to have the confidence a little bit to not double tip. We saw fall for a bit. Gary is here, who is the travel agent based in the US, who, as many people may know, a lot of people on the channel use Gary, and I get very good glowing reviews. In fact, I need to send an email to Gary. I've had 2 people email in the last week saying how happy they are with the experience that they had with Gary. So thanks for that, Gary. Lots of people waiting to see Fraser's footage. Remember, if you've got a question, write the word question, because I think I'm missing a couple of questions because the word question's not there. So I sometimes don't see those. So just write the word question if you do. So Katie, I didn't miss your one. Enjoying your info, which is great. We're doing Oceania in September. As everyone knows, it's a line I really like. One of the stops is, okay, Warnemünde, Berlin. We know Berlin, but it's a 12-hour ship tour day. Warnemünde is probably, and I hope no one's going to be offended by this, is one of the dullest places I've ever been to on a cruise tour. It's not really a very interesting place at all. And I would say if I had never been to Berlin, I would have done that tour. Berlin is a fascinating city. I've been to Berlin quite often, both in my previous working days and on other trips and stuff. So I thought, actually, I don't want to do that whole thing because I've been there a few times. It was very dull. I used it eventually as a day to do lots of filming and stuff like that and whatever, but it wasn't a very interesting town at all. And I couldn't really find much to do there. So I would do it. Berlin is a fascinating place to go. So I would, it's a very long, tiring day, but I think it is worth it. Unless you literally want to have a chill out day on the ship and you want to go to the spa, want to schedule one of those kind of chory, relaxing sort of days. Dale, when you've cruised to Holland, America, have you ever paid for the hydrotherapy pool and thermal suites? I'm not a big fan of those pool and those suites at all. So I never ever go to them. I don't enjoy them. I sort of one of those people that don't understand the point of them, although I'm in the minority because people love them. So and they normally order about $14 a day or something like that, if I remember correctly. So I'm probably the wrong person to ask for, but they are very popular. But I haven't. So it's just I don't enjoy the experience. I think if you like the experience, definitely. I know people who the first thing they do when they get there is they go both on Cunard and they book it. This is a really big question, and I'm trying to think. I've got a video for this. I think I've got sort of a video for this. So AI 4x4. The difference between British focus as opposed to American focus. In reality, most cruise lines are really kind of American focused because even many of the British lines like Cunard, P&O are owned by American Carnival Corporation. But the main difference, I would say, if you go on a Saga, which someone just come back from, or even Fred Olsen, although it's Norwegian, but it's very British focused, is you'll find many of the time the passengers are almost all British because some of them will make it very difficult for non-British travelers to book them. Like on Saga, it's basically impossible, pretty much. P&O, it's challenging. So you'll find it's normally all British passengers, and you'll find everything is very British focused. So all the trivia quizzes, those kind of game show things will all be British. So they'll be, referring to British things, as it were. So sometimes you'll find non-British people may find those more struggle because they might talk about British personalities or whatever. You'll find the shows and the guest artists will normally be British. And someone asked the question a little bit earlier, some of the menu items will be more classic British. So you'll have your bangers and mash, your sausages and mash. Afternoon tea tends to be a much bigger feature, and it's done normally pretty well. So you do sometimes feel, I think, on a British focus, you're traveling more of a bubble. So if you're going on a British line like P&O, who relocate their ships to the Caribbean, if you go on one of those, it's like you're traveling in the UK. So that is probably the biggest difference. But even some British ships, for example, like Cunard, the onboard currency is the dollar because they have a more international crowd. But you'll find on P&O stuff, it's in pounds sterling. That's probably that's the main difference. Other than that, it's pretty similar. And bear in mind, a lot of the ships are the same. A lot of the new P&O ships are the same as the new Carnival ships because it's that class of ships, for example. Here we go. Tony, good to see you, regular here. Have you taken any cruises on Cunard through Asia? Yes, I have a Cunard trip Sydney to Tokyo next September 24. Your thoughts? So yes, I've done it twice. Actually, we've done we've sailed on Queen Mary 2 from Sydney all the way to Dubai, all the way through Asia, and we've done Queen Elizabeth out of Hong Kong, which included parts of China, and went around Japan. And it is a little bit linked to that previous question, Tony. It's a very similar thing where it is quite a British experience. It is mostly British passengers, but we did find, though, that on the leg out of Australia, which you will find, there's a lot of Aussies on, because Aussies get sold Cunard quite a lot. A lot of Aussies also don't like Cunard because the travel agents seem to sell them on Cunard without really pointing out the dress code and it's not carnival style entertainment and stuff. So we did have a lot of moaning Australians on, bizarrely. But that's probably stereotyping a bit. So it's a very typical Cunard experience. They don't change a lot. The food and that stuff is the same. They bring the same kind of entertainers they would normally bring in. They fly them in from the UK or whatever, so it's very familiar. They will have the guest speakers. What they did have, which I really liked, is they had really good destination speakers on. So they had someone, one of their sort of guest speakers was someone that would be on to talk about all the ports. So you'd have the excursion talks, and you'd then have the port talks. And the port talks were really, really good. Lots of really practical information, particularly if you want to go solo cruising. So it's a good trip. We really, really enjoyed it. So Tom asking about the travel insurance piece here, and I don't have I said I'm not an expert on travel insurance, but some of the lines do recommend coverage. So that's the thing to look at, but it tends to be more UK lines. So I would normally, if you do, what I would suggest, Tom, is when you're looking at the travel insurance, look for the cruise cover. Look for a line which has cruise cover, because they will normally then, in my experience, kind of recommend kind of levels because it's linked to a lot of that. I need to probably do a whole video around travel insurance because I get asked a lot about that. Mark, question. Considering Virtuoso Yacht Club in August, that's what I'm going to be doing for mine. Or Royal Caribbean Anthem of the Seas Junior Suite as a similar price. Yeah, I was looking at that before. Once drinks and Wi-Fi factor. Been on Virtuoso previously, and it's too busy outside Yacht Club. Thoughts? So, I mean, you're right. Virtuoso is kind of rammed, full. Anthem is also pretty busy, but I guess it's not the same scale of ship. If it was one of the bigger class, always forget the different classes, but it's not on the scale of Virtuoso. I mean, the Yacht Club experience, the thing, if you go on a junior suite, you're not going to get the Royal Caribbean included stuff. So I think I'm right saying in the junior suite, you don't get the dedicated restaurant and all that sort of stuff. So for me, I would do like the kind of the ship within a ship thing. So that's why I'm kind of want to really tie that up. But I'm going to be trying, which is on Symphony actually. I'm trying more of, it's not quite their ship within a ship, but I'm trying their suite experience to then also compare that with the Haven experience. So I would say, if you've been on Virtuosa and you have, I'm guessing you've been on Yacht Club, I would do the other way. The other thing is, if you haven't been on Yacht Club, I was just running again through what's included. The Yacht Club experience is what's included is actually superior to many of the other ship within a ship or premium categories. I'm comparing it with even say a Cunard Queen's Grill, or looking at Celebrity Retreat. What's included in the Yacht Club and the whole Yacht Club process is way above. It's much cheaper than the other things, but way above that. Someone asked a question on transatlantic in July. A lot of it depends. In reality, the transatlantic is very unpredictable. It depends, but it tends to be a little bit calmer. Normally, it's certainly going to be way calmer than it is going to be in the winter time. But it is unpredictable. If there's a storm coming through, it'll be bumpy. And that's just the unpredictability of that. So just a reminder, write the word question. I feel like I'm missing questions. Like I missed that one on the thing. Gela Rose of Texas, great name. What's the best way to cruise the British Isles? Thank you, Gela. So Gela, there is a fairly good range of choice cruising around the British Isles, not a massive amount of choice. And a lot of it hinges around the kind of experience you want. So a little bit linked to that question we had before. So, if you want, so the lines, I'll tell you the lines that sort of do good itineraries and regular, frequent itineraries around the British Isles. So Princess does a lot around the UK. They have sometimes multiple ships, and I can't even remember what they've got for this season, next season, but they have a lot of ships in the UK. They do a very comprehensive, very good around the UK itineraries. They know it incredibly well. So if you're a Princess fan or like the Princess experience, that's a really good one because they really do it really well. Celebrity, which bases ships in there, they do more diverse itineraries, but they do have some around the UK. Cunard do some around the UK, not as many as Princess do. Then you've got things like Saga will do it, Fred Olsen will do it. P&O, the UK-based line, do it as well. So you've got a fair amount of choice, but they do. Sorry, I'm going to say one more. And Viking will do it. Once you're in the more premium category, Viking do some around the UK. Seabourn do some around the UK. In fact, even with their expedition ship with Venture, they do it. And Hurtigruten do an sort of expedition one. So what you can see from that is a lot of it is to decide what sort of experience you want. So if you want to have, a more classic cruise experience that's not too crazy price-wise, you take a look at things like the Princess, or for UK-based P&O, which is actually more value. If you want a slightly more immersive kind of destination focused, I would take a look at something like a Viking or some of the, because Viking are very good with their, they normally have a historian and another guest speaker on. So they'll do a lot of stuff around the history and that sort of stuff. If you want to go into a little more out of the way places, you'll find like the smaller Fred Olsen ships will do that. If you do want a slightly more lively environment, some of the new P&O ships, which are more family oriented, are a bit more kind of vibrant. So a lot of it depends on the way you want to do it. Now, if you really want to deep dive into the British Isles, take a look at some of those more expedition-y ones, like the Hurtigruten and the Seabourn Venture ones, because they're going to go into smaller places and do a little bit more kind of off the beaten track stuff. Hopefully that answered your question. Which I don't have any plans to go on Icon of the Seas that someone's asking me about. Building on that question, Jimmy, what's the best time to cruise the British Isles weather-wise? So the UK, of course, the weather is the weather. I think a really good time, the hottest period in the UK is normally August and September. So, last August or whatever, in July, it was up to 40 degrees Celsius at times. But good weather is normally August, September time. So September, the thing with August, of course, it's school holiday time, it's very busy. September is quite a nice time to go because the weather's normally pretty good too. If you go at the beginning of September, when the schools come back, everything's still kind of open and busy, but the towns and stuff is less tourist. So a lot of the tourists come in July, August time, places like London and even Edinburgh. Well, Edinburgh in August, you hit the Edinburgh Festival time. Because some of those are really, really packed. So actually September is a fantastic time. If you go more June, July time when a lot of them are kicking up, it's a little bit unpredictable. So like May this year has been terrible weather-wise, but normally it would be better weather-wise. So that would be the time that I would sort of focus on personally. Matthew, do you have any thoughts on cruising Silversea as a solo traveler and when to book the best deal with this single supplement? So I've been on Silversea a couple of times solo, and I've had a great time solo. You're not, because of the nature of the ships and size of the ships, more people are going to be couples on that. So solo travelers are a little bit less common on those. But you're right, they do have their solo traveler low single supplement things. If I'm booking this like I did with the more expedition ones, but also my South African one, I book those as early as I can because they tend to only them for limited periods of time. So I would book them as early as they come on because that's often when you get the best timing of all. But they're pretty good. I mean, I like the experience. I'm going to have another slip here. So Jane is doing that great Cunard Christmas cruise, which is a classic. Cunard been doing it for years and years and years. It sells out of New York. I think it's the 22nd of December, if I remember. Does some great Caribbean, has Christmas at sea, Christmas and New Year's Eve, heads back about the 3rd or 4th, and you can do the transatlantic. It's a great trip. I would book your excursions, Jane, as soon as they come on, because those are extremely popular cruises. People who do them, you'll meet people on those who do them almost every year. We met people when we were on who are now grown up, and they were doing them as kids when it was QE2 with their parents, and then so people go a lot. Quite a few families go on those. So I try and book them as quickly as you can. Now, if I remember correctly, the Cunard refund policy for cruises is quite good. I think it's 48 hours before. I seem to remember, but don't quote me on this, that they don't knock anything off if you cancel. So actually locking them in, you have time to cancel because you have a couple of sea days anyway at the beginning, so you can often cancel those without any penalty. The downside, although it might have changed, I need to double check this, is Cunard used to not allow you before a trip to use your onboard credit towards the excursions. Now that might have changed. The downside was we often then had to pay for excursions and we couldn't use onboard credit. Now that might have changed. I haven't checked that recently, but that was the downside, is you kind of then had to fork out when you actually had onboard credit. So that was that. On the plus side, it does hold people back a little bit. Gene asking a question around loyalty programs. I've done some. I haven't dived into them a lot. I get asked this question a lot about running, doing a video about those. I'm probably a terrible person with rewards because I tend to focus a lot more on the trip I want to do. I want to try different cruise lines. So I'm a bit rubbish probably at loyalty. Although saying that, I have very good loyalty on Cunard because we've done a lot of Cunard, and that's proving to be really good because one of the things that MSC has, and it's the only one I think, again, I'm not sure if anyone else has got, but the only one I'm aware of, which doesn't mean I'm right, but anyone aware of, which does a status match. So I was able to take my diamond status on Cunard, just had to give proof that I had that status, and MSC have matched me at their highest tier, which for this trip is fantastic because there's all sorts of other perks and stuff built in. So I haven't done it. I think the question often is that I say to people is like, if you really love a line and want to stick with it and build a loyalty, that's great. But you need to also balance that with what the benefits are. So you're right, if you do have a massive big free cruise, you might argue actually the fact that I could maybe find a lower cost, better itinerary, it doesn't worry me on another line, because ultimately that 14-day free cruise or the 7-day free cruise, fewer lines actually have the free cruise. It's interesting because most of the Carnival Corporation ones tend to do more things like laundry and Wi-Fi and especially dining. Once you get into the Norwegian group like Oceania and the Royal Caribbean, they seem to have more of those. So I probably should do much more. Mark saying, back from Oceania cruise, do I have any more booked? Yes, I got the Vista booked, which I'm really looking forward to. DB asking a question about what is the best deck on the Island Princess. So this is a new, I don't know the best deck. I had that video around. When you're looking for the deck, should I say not deck, desk. Start again, best deck. So that was a question mark. I tend to aim for, if I look at the Lido deck here and the Promenade deck here, I try to go in the middle between those, because first of all, you buffer it on all sides by cabins, so that's good to keep you away from busy areas. But then it means you've got kind of equidistance to go up to the Lido, where you like to go up to the pool deck or the Lido buffet, and you're mid-level to go down to the Promenade, where you've got the shows and the casino and guest services and all that stuff. So that's, for me, is always the one that I go for, irrespective of the ship. DB referring to about waiting for main dining room. I'm not sure what that is. Okay. Ronald, we booked on Queen Anne in June 2024. So I'm booked on May 2024. But Mark and I are going sort of their second trip they're doing, and sort of links in with our birthdays, which is nice. As keen ballroom dancers, do you know there will be a Queen's Room ballroom? Yes, they are going to have a Queen's Room, looking at the deck plans. And it's going to be, if you've ever been, if anyone's ever been on, I don't know if you've ever been on a Pinnacle class. So it's a Pinnacle class ship. So it's a Holland America Pinnacle class ship. So if you've been on the Rotterdam or the New Statendam, that size of ship, it is that ship. And they're creating the Queen's Room, where on the Holland America you've got the BB Kings, and it looks like they're sort of extending that a bit, and the Queen's Room is going to be that level and the level above. So there is going to be a room, there's going to be that, and they're going to create that there. So it doesn't look, it also is going to stretch it a bit, so it's going to encompass it, I think, a little bit into the space where you've got the music walk to just make it a little bit bigger. But yes, they are going to have that. It's going to be interesting to see what it looks like, because they're trying to modernize the whole sort of look. Greg answered the question, considering a 10-day cruise in the Mediterranean, what cruise line would you consider the best value from North America? So in reality, Greg, it's I would focus more, to be honest, on which type of experience you want. So a little bit I was talking about earlier with the UK, because I think pretty much, I might say every single line has a Mediterranean itinerary, either for the whole season or part of the season. So, the ships, when they do the Caribbean season, then they send a slug of ships to Alaska, they send a slug of ships to the Mediterranean during that peak summer season. So pretty much every line operates there, some more than others. So Carnival, as I mentioned earlier, tends not to be very active in the Med, but you can get out Carnival cruises. So if you're looking for a fun ship experience, and good value, you're going to find a Carnival option. If you want to go a Regent Seven Seas, ultimate experience, you will find it. If you want to go Ritz-Carlton, small ship, mind-boggling expensive, you'll find it. So whatever you want. So I would really look at what onboard experience you want. The itineraries are pretty much the same, because in Europe, in the Mediterranean, particularly if they all pretty much call it the same ports, because there's only a certain amount of ports that can handle it. If you go smaller ship, you will get a little bit more unusual itinerary. But if you're going any sort of mid to large ship, they all call them the same ports, or they call them ports that are going to access the main places, whether Florence, and Pisa. Some of them will go to Ravenna, some will go to Livorno. But they're all going to the same place. So I would really focus on the experience that you want, and you will find that so whatever you think is good value, if you're cruising the Caribbean, that line you feel is good value, you will find the same. They're equally good value relative to other lines in the Mediterranean. Sal with Gail and Mike. Hi there. Thinking of cruising the Far East in March next year. Have you cruised that time of the year? What's the weather like? Yes. So I've cruised through Asia in March. If it depends where you're cruising to. So if you're in Japan, it's a little bit chilly, but the rest of it's hot, but not crazy, but beautiful weather. So I think back to my pictures I've got of us. It's sunny, it's warm. It's not the typhoon season, which I guess is kind of more now. Just watching the news, there's some typhoons going through. So it's all my pictures are kind of blue skies, nice sunny weather. So I find that a great time to go. But Japan, we went to Japan in that March. It was chilly, it was cold. It was sort of, because it's the same sort of latitude as the UK, I guess. I did know this. So a little trivia about I know there's big plans for Tropicana, that whole area. I didn't know they were doing that sort of stuff. Okay, I don't know the answer to this, but this is I'm trying to think of who I see follows the duck thing. So cruise ducks. My wife's friend, I'm bringing about 50. So basically, if anyone doesn't know, this has become a bit of a phenomena where you get those little rubber ducks that you have in baths, and they become a thing on cruise ships, where you often find them different spots around a cruise, a little tag on. We can either keep them or reposition them. So I don't know this. I haven't really got stuck into the cruise thing, and I'm trying to think who. As I said, there's a couple of bloggers who are more into the cruise ducks thing. That's a lot. 50 sounds a lot to me, because that's a lot of ducks. But I guess people love them, and I'm sure the more the merrier. Let me know if you can answer that question, having taken ducks. That's a lot of ducks. 50 ducks. Wow. Bill's just going to check the itinerary. Dennis asking the question, are the lines still having staffing trouble, or are they deliberately understaffing to save costs? I just got off the Volendam and service quality was poor. It appears that recruiting is still a challenge, and training is still an issue in all of my experience. So they're still bringing people on really quickly and putting them on the front line really quickly. The problem I still think, which hasn't really worked its way through the system, in my view, Dennis, based on what I've seen, is through the pandemic, a lot of experienced people left at all levels. So a lot of people are coming in, get them out on fast, learn on the job, but also through the layers. I don't think you have the degree of experience. Now we are definitely seeing some reduction in staffing areas. It tends to be more in the cabin service area, the stewards and stuff. So a lot of lines are moving to once a day service. So there is kind of a dialing back. So I think it's probably a slight combination of things. I don't know the answer exactly. I'm just talking about what I'm observing, what I'm reading. Reading things like crewcenter.com and Crew Center Facebook page, which was run by Crew. They talk about those kinds of things. Cabin students have been given more cabins. They're doing a twice a day service, but they have more cabins than they kind of had before. And other people saying, cutting costs to save costs may bite them in the end, which I think is very, very key. KB in the UK booked on MSC a 7-day Mediterranean World of Europa in the Yacht Club, Great in September. As practice for an Edge Oz in the retreat will be interesting. Yes, I think it's going to be very interesting to compare that. So that's one of the things I'm going to really kind of focus on, as well as comparing those different things to see just how different they are. Because on paper there's lots of it would appear that the Yacht Club has much more, but a lot of it's around delivery and quality and all that sort of stuff. We're running massive out of time. So I want to answer this question. It's a massive big topic, but I will touch on it as best I can. So being a cruise YouTuber, have you ever had issues while filming on the ship? No, small number of passengers do not like to be filmed. Do cruise lines have issues with this? Tom, the cruise lines don't have an issue with it. They may come to have an issue with it because I think a lot of it's around how it's done. So I do know some YouTubers that have had trouble on ships where security or that has given them a hard time and stopped them filming. And they tend to have come with more big intrusive equipment, big gimbals and cameras and stuff. So I think if it's very overt, then clearly, and it's intrusive and getting in the way, cruise lines get very skittish about it and worried. I have never, up until now, had any issues with it. I do tend to try film around people, so I do lots of filming at the back of people or more general shots of people. I think if anybody doesn't want to be filmed, a lot of people know who I am and know that I'm filming and stuff. So, and my issue I found, Tom, is more people coming asking to be in the videos than asking not to be in the videos. The other thing that's very important, by the way, is if anybody doesn't like being filmed or think they're being filmed, they should mention it to the person. But also, it's very easy afterwards, once you've uploaded to YouTube, if someone says, actually, I have my picture's there, I don't want it, it's very easy, even once it's been uploaded, to tell YouTube to blur that person. It's very clever tech, so you can have that person upload. So I think a lot of it's around sensitivity in filming. The cruise lines generally don't, because they want the publicity or so, don't always know. They don't even know if you're doing it, I guess. And they do ask YouTubers on board. As you know, I don't do press trips, but I get invited on lots, so clearly they don't mind. Under their terms and conditions, by the way, it does say very clearly that you will be filmed and can be filmed, and your image can be used. Now, that's more in relation to the cruise line than other people using it. So, and cruise lines do have the right, by the way, in most cruise contracts, to ask you to take photos down. But touch wood, it's never happened. Never happened to me. So we have church to time. We've run out of time. I know there's probably more questions here that I didn't get to. I apologize for that. I do always go back and look at those. There are some points that people make is avoid filming children. Like on Disney, it was a nightmare trying to film on Disney without catching any kids. But so thanks very much for joining. As I said, I will try and run a live stream next week, which will be from MSC. So keep an eye out for that. Probably trying to do it on the Sunday again. I found that's also be when lots of people come. Thanks for your question. I'll look at them, see if I can answer those, and have a great rest of the weekend. And if it is Mother's Day where you are, then have a great Mother's Day. Don't forget that video on the Caribbean's there. So go and have a watch of that. Take care and goodbye.